My name is Stephanie White, and what brought me to Maximize Living is a long journey of living with multiple sclerosis, which started back in the late 80s. I started having symptoms related to the fact of trying to be very fit. I wanted to be a model, found out that I was too short to be a model, but I still wanted to be very thin, so I was always exercising in the heat in Florida, and that's an aggravation for MS symptoms, and I didn't know I had it. But I would get these horrible pins and needles going up and down my legs. It was like intense. It was like pins and needles, imagine on steroids. It was so agonizing. It would take me to my knees and I would scratch. I had a child and I couldn't walk. After having had my child, I was having difficulty. So I went to my obstetrician for my postpartum exam and told her I was having difficulty walking, and she said, well, that sometimes can be normal for some pregnancies and some in childbirth due to the trauma of childbirth. If it continues after I see you again, we'll look into it. Well, unbeknownst to me, because I had multiple sclerosis and it was relapsing, remitting, the symptoms went away by the time of my next appointment. So we ignored it again. About maybe 15 years later, in 2003, I was actually so sick, I had to go to the doctor to figure out, well, what is wrong with me? And they went and had me go to neurology, and that's when they diagnosed me with multiple sclerosis. It was frightening. I was relieved I wasn't dying immediately, but it was frightening to not know what to expect with my life. I was at the prime of my life, about the age of 35. And it's known as the prime of life disease, when you have families and you have careers and you're trying to map out your life, and all of a sudden you get told you're chronically ill, and it kind of stops everything. I started having different MRIs done. I started having several lab tests, blood work done, because they had to eliminate any and everything they could before diagnosing something as serious as multiple sclerosis. And when he finally gave me the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, I was relieved on the one hand that I wasn't dying, that I would live to raise my daughter, at least in the short term. I wasn't something that was going to immediately kill me, but I was terrified at what that meant for the rest of my life, because it is known as the prime of life disease. And being around the age of 35 in the middle of a career and thinking about what I was going to do with my life, everything went to a halt. And I was now preparing for how to live with MS and what medications I needed to take to avoid ending up in a wheelchair, or avoid ending up blind, or in some other kind of way disabled. And it was devastating. I suffered with severe fatigue where I could barely get out of bed. I suffered with depression, partly because it is depressing to live like that, and partly because the nervous system is affected in such a way that it triggers depression. And the doctors wanted me to put me on antidepressants. So all of these various medications that the doctor was prescribing was just making me sicker and sicker, and I was putting on more weight, and my quality of life was just being extinguished. So lo and behold, about a year ago, or less than a year ago, I went to the arts market in Riverside in a lot of pain, but I was one that had a lot of drive and a lot of strong will and didn't want to give up. So me and my mother went to the arts market to do a little shopping, and there was a booth there, a Maximize Living booth, and the gentleman asked me if I would do if he asked me some questions like, was I having digestive issues, was I having neck and shoulder pain or back pain? And I kind of laughed at him and said, no, I have multiple sclerosis, so I have something more serious than just that. And he wasn't deterred. He just said, well, let me do a preliminary exam. Let me just see what's going on. And as a result of that exam, he said, I really would hope that you would come into the office to have a more thorough exam, because I'm seeing some things that I believe we can treat, and we can reverse some of the damage. So I said, well, what do I have to lose? So I came over and started being treated by Dr. Erin Zovath. I had x-rays done, and she showed me the curve in my spine, and that it was a reversed curve, and that they could correct that through a chiropractic, through an adjustment, and that there were other things that they could do to help get me out of pain and get me back on my feet, because I was too young to be this sick, and that this was all reversible. And I was encouraged by that. So I said, well, I have nothing to lose. So I started implementing all the strategies that they had. I started having my adjustments. I started changing my diet. And I'm just so grateful because with the 5 essentials of having a maximized mind and knowing how to get the proper sleep and what it takes to get proper rest and how to kind of let go of negativity and bring positivity into my life. And with the adjustments, having the spine be corrected, and with the nutrition and with the exercise, the Max T3, which is brutal at times, but it makes me stronger, and with the toxins that I've learned that I have to avoid. Once I was able to implement all of those things, I started to have a new found, I guess, of freedom. It's just where you feel like something's opened up and you're just so grateful. So anyway, I've been going to Maximize Living for many months now, and I've lost about 35 pounds, and I'm still losing, but I'm losing it in a healthy way. Whereas before it was all about, well, I need to be skinny. And now it's about being healthy and feeling good and being able to do the things I love doing, like gardening and being out with my family and being out with my dog and not being in the bed. I've amazed my family, I've amazed my friends, and I'm so thankful.